So, today's lecture is on major construction projects, innovation and risk in airport design. Now, at the centre of innovation is the idea of something new. And for architecture and construction projects, innovation has always been important. Without innovation, we just repeat what exists already and we don't move forward. And to meet the needs of complex projects, such as those of a new airport, we need innovation. New ideas, new techniques. So today's lecture will focus on two recent projects, both major innovations in the construction of international airports. We'll be looking at, firstly, Cheklapkok Airport in China, which is better known as Hong Kong Airport, and also at the Terminal 5 development at London's Heathrow Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. I want to describe these projects briefly and use them as examples to show why innovation is one of the main factors behind new infrastructure developments at airports generally. And I also want to show how innovative ideas can benefit the end users, in this case, passengers and airport staff. Now, when you start a major construction project, obviously you have to think about the risks involved. So I want to look at risk in relation to these two airport projects, to see what can go wrong, and look at why such projects don't always turn out as planned. We'll look at how, to be successful, they need not only physical resources, land, building materials, they also need effective management and innovative technology in the form of computer software. And this software has to be reliable. If it's not reliable, the whole project can be affected. And then later in the lecture, I want to look at how we evaluate major construction projects and why so many big projects overrun their budgets and end up costing much more than was planned at the start. So, let's look first at Hong Kong's airport. I want to start by going back to the 1970s. At this time, it was clear that the old airport in Hong Kong, Kai Tak, was running out of capacity. They needed to increase the size of the airport and build a second runway. But there was very little space. The map on this slide shows the whole of Hong Kong, and on the right-hand side you can see the old airport, Kai Tak. It's situated in the northeast of the city. The problem was that Kai Tak was in a very risky location. The planes had to fly low over the city to land. Because space was so limited, an innovative solution was needed. So a completely new site was chosen to build a replacement airport. The island known as Cheklapkok, here on the left of the slide, off the north coast of Lantau. And as you can probably see, it doesn't look very natural in shape compared with the other islands around it. This is because Cheklapkok Island presented a major engineering challenge. The island had to be levelled off. A new land had to be reclaimed back from the sea on its north coast. This kind of thing had been done before in other parts of the world, but the preparation of Cheklapkok Island for its new role as host to Hong Kong's airport was one of the largest construction projects of the 20th century. The architects, Foster and Partners from the UK, were chosen to design the project, and the whole project, including the levelling off of the island and the reclamation of land from the sea, was completed extremely quickly, in only 6 years. This is an extraordinary achievement. The new airport opened in 1998, about a year after the handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997. Here's a plan of the airport. You should be able to make out the two runways situated along each side of Chetlakok Island, north and south. And you'll also notice a very large area, well, two very large areas actually. Near the top of the slide is the passenger terminal on the east side there, and the cargo area in the bottom half of the slide is to the south. Back in 2010, the airport became the busiest cargo airport in the world, taking over from Memphis in the USA. It's obviously a major hub for the region, for mainland China, particularly the south, but also for other countries in the region. The other area in the center of the slide is currently not developed. As you can see, it's reserved for future airport expansion. During the design stage in the 1980s, it was realized they would probably need to continue to expand. And in fact, these plans, these expansion plans, are now quite far advanced. Okay, so let's turn to our other project. This is the project at Terminal 5 at London Heathrow. This was needed for similar reasons to the expansion at Hong Kong: growing demand and limited capacity. Here, on this map of London, you can see Heathrow situated on the left-hand side of the slide, to the west of the city, near the M25, London's orbital motorway, in blue. There are other airports around London, including City Airport to the east of the centre, but Heathrow is the largest airport, and there was pressure on it to expand. So it was decided in the early 1980s that a new fifth terminal was needed at Heathrow. For many years it had just 3 terminals. Terminal 4 opened in 1986, but the need for a 5th terminal quickly became apparent. This was driven by British Airways, who are now based in Terminal 5. The British architectural firm, the Richard Rogers Partnership, was chosen to design the building, working with the engineering firm Arup and other partners as well. Here you can see Terminal 5 on the left of the slide in the western part of the airport. The terminal took a long time to complete. There was a long public consultation process, and construction didn't start until 2002. And the new terminal opened in 2008. The terminal building is currently the largest single covered construction in the UK. So, what about innovation? Well, several innovative techniques were used in the construction process for Terminal 5. For example, conventional cranes couldn't be used because they would interfere with the airport's radar systems. So smaller cranes were used to build the roof on the ground, and then it was lifted up into position in sections. So you can see that innovation has played an important role in the development of both major projects. As I said, we'll examine the idea of innovation in more detail later on. Okay, these are 2 very successful and innovative projects. However, there were also serious problems with both projects, and these need to be considered alongside the success stories. When they opened, both Hong Kong Airport and Heathrow Terminal 5 suffered from serious IT failures. Now, I'd like to relate these failures to a number of questions raised by Professor Bent Flueberg of the Said Business School at the University of Oxford. Flueberg has identified a number of negative characteristics of major infrastructure projects. And this slide outlines these characteristics, which I'd like to run through now. First, Flueberg argues that most major infrastructure projects involve risk. This is because they have long periods of preparation and planning. And also, they're very complex. Put simply, in most projects like this, a lot of things can go wrong. Second point, the technology and design of these projects are non-standard. They've been developed for one particular project. They may be innovative, but they're also unusual. So most of the time, they're not tried and tested. Fluberg's third point is that there are many different groups of people involved. The architects, construction companies, governments, shareholders, and so on. So there are often competing interests in terms of decision-making and planning and management of the project. Fourth, there is what Fluberg calls lock-in. Now, by this, he means that the main idea of the projects is decided at a very early stage, and alternative choices and options often are not looked at or analysed. All the planning is focused on the chosen project and its design, so other alternatives, which may be better, are not considered. Number 5, the details and size of the project can also change. For example, technology may change, or customers may come up with new requirements. Okay, point 6. Statistical evidence shows that most projects don't take account of unplanned events. Now, obviously, unplanned events can't be predicted, but the point is they're going to happen. And project teams need to make sure they have extra time and money available in case something unexpected happens. This is known as contingency planning. Fluberg also refers to misinformation, the wrong information, in other words. This is very common in big projects, and this misinformation is mainly about the costs, about the benefit, and about risks. For example, it may be in some people's interest to underestimate the cost of construction, and this can lead to problems. So, all these factors that Fluberg talks about can result in what he calls cost overruns and benefit shortfalls. What this means, in simple terms, is that more is promised, less is delivered, and the whole project costs more than was planned. Okay, I'd like now to look again at Hong Kong Airport and Heathrow Terminal 5 and see how Fluberg's points about risk apply to these two projects.